The regimental spirit is something which makes the Indian Army the best soldiers in the world. The Indian officer doesn't say, "Tum aage jao, you go, I'm coming."
You lead from the front.
He says, sets a personal example. He says, "Follow me." Canteens have been open to civilians and Ministry of Defence. So they're trying to take away all our privileges, which will affect the morale of the army.
So, sir, talking about the NDA, you have written a very nice account of your days in the Joint Services Wing, the JSW, which was the precursor to the NDA. And in fact, yours was the first batch which went from JSW to the new campus at Khadakwasla in the NDA when it was created. You won the gold medal for the best all-round cadet. You also won the silver for being first in the order of merit. How has the life of a cadet in an institution like the NDA changed over the years? What has changed and what has absolutely not changed?
It will be difficult for me to answer this question because I have not gone back to the NDA to see.
Right.
What is a little bit worrisome is the fact that if you read Beyond Fear, my first story is about a lady doctor who went into a combat zone,
Right,
and did exceedingly well as a doctor,
right,
and is the first woman doctor, a woman army woman in uniform to be decorated for gallantry.
right.
So women can do well, but God has made us differently. There are some things which we can do and some things which we can't do.
Correct.
We as men can't do something which women do, and women can't do what we can do.
Right.
So that must be understood.
Right.
And there has to be a limit. Now, if they're going to continue to demand to be in the infantry, that's going to cause a lot of problems.
Right.
There are other problems which I don't know enough about because I never served with women in the army, but there are problems.
Right, sir.
And it's a question of attitude.
Right, sir.
If the women want to be equal to the army, equal to the men, then they should also get equal treatment.
Right, sir.
But they want special treatment.
Which is,
not all of them.
Okay.
Like this girl in the story, but some of them.
Right.
Which causes problems.
Right. So, sir, the Gorkha soldiers with whom you have served, they have a legendary reputation for bravery. And you chose to join the first 5 Gorkha Rifles once you passed out from the NDA and the IMA, and now your eldest son is serving in the very same regiment that you served, sir. You have also been their colonel, and you have seen them very closely from close quarters. We would like to hear from you firsthand what it was like to command a Gorkha battalion, serve with these soldiers, and what can you tell us about their culture and their history?
It is the dream of every infantry officer,
right,
to command his battalion.
Okay.
And that, whatever comes after that, is a bonus.
Right, sir.
We have 2 customs in first 5 which I think have affected all of us,
okay,
in the battalion.
Okay.
When I asked for leave after 1 year, I was told, your leave is sanctioned. Where do you think you're going?
Right.
So I said, I'm from Bombay. I'll go to my parents in Bombay.
Right.
They said, your leave is sanctioned, but you're not going to Bombay.
You can go home.
You're going to Nepal.
Right.
So that's how I went to Nepal.
Okay.
And the custom is that a Gorkha Johnny, a soldier,
right,
who's going on leave,
right, sir,
takes you, his officer, to his home. And then he is passed on from family to family till the 1 month or 2 months are over. So I went with this soldier of mine from my company, and I visited all my soldiers' homes in Nepal.
Okay.
So I learned the language, I learned the dialects, Gurkha, Magarkha.
Wow.
I learned the stories about history of the battalion from first hand, from those who had taken part in World War I, World War II, 47, 48, 65. Wow. Their stories.
Right, sir.
And I met the grandparents, the parents, the children. And when I went back to my company, the men would die for me and I would die for them.
Absolutely.
The question of death, therefore, never arose. It's just love.
Right.
Love, spirit, honor. This is what inspires us to do what we do. And that is one part.
Right, sir.
The other part is, other custom is, when a man dies in battle, from the CO downwards to the last junior-most rifleman, we all give 1 day's salary.
1 day salary is donated.
That is collected,
okay,
and given to the widow or the mother of the boy if he's not married.
Correct.
So this money was collected and given to a GSO, And this boy who died in Sri Lanka,
Right.
He was the third generation soldier of the regiment.
In the family, right, sir.
So the JC was going to his home, and as he's climbing up, the villagers asked him, "Kahan ja rahe ho?" So he says, "It's so and so place." So he said, "Oh, how did you know?" So, "Know what? That he has died." So he said, "I did not know he has died."
Oh.
And then he realizes that they both father and son have died about the same time.
Same time, yeah.
So he goes to the home of this boy, and the mother is sitting down in the sun, and she says, "Bhim Bahadur Sahab, how did you come to know?" He said, "Know what, Mataji? That my husband has passed away." So he has to tell us, "Mataji, I'm sorry. Not only have you lost your husband,
But also your
you've
son.
also lost your son." So she sits down and tears stream down her cheeks. And then her remaining son, there are only two boys, comes and she tells the JCO, "It is not right that the link between my family and the army and the battalion should break. Take this boy with you." And the boy says, "But mother, what will happen to you?" He said, "Don't worry about me. The honor of the family and the regiment is more important. Go."
Remarkable.
And that's how she went. So it is these things that regimental spirit is something which makes the Indian Army the best soldiers in the world. The privilege of commanding men in battle is given to very few, and it always falls on young soldiers, the shoulders of young officers.
In fact, my next question was on the very same subject, sir.
Okay.
A lot of what you have written touches upon the art of soldiering. And you have written about, you just described how this Gurkha mother was absolutely willing to send her last son also to serve the army, and the lifelong bond that it forms. So what does it mean to be a true soldier? You partly answered it, but I'd like you to elaborate. And how have you seen Indian soldiering evolve over time? What has changed in Indian soldiering, the ethos and the spirit?
I think a good example of this is the Battle of Dogra.
Okay.
The CO had just taken over a week before the war.
Right, sir.
Lieutenant Colonel Desmond Hayde.
Okay.
Mahavir Chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes with his battalion and he's tasked to capture Dogra. One battalion versus one battalion. Now, normally it's 3-1.
3-1 is the ratio.
Because people are going to die on the minefields, artillery fire, etc. So when you reach the objective, you should have at least a similar strength.
Force ratio. Yeah.
But it was now one battalion to one battalion. But he was very unconventional. And he says, if I was in the school of instruction and I made this plan, I would have been failed.
Right.
But it succeeded beyond all doubt, beyond all expectations. And he captured Dogra. Not only captured Dogra, the aim of the corps was to threaten Lahore.
Right.
He captured Dogra, went on to Bata factory, which was 12 miles from Lahore.
Correct, sir.
But he required to be reinforced because they're going to throw him back.
Correct, sir.
But they couldn't. So he was recalled. They considered this a dishonor.
Okay.
And when Dogra had to be captured again, both Dogra was important for us to threaten Lahore. It was important for the Pakistanis to defend Lahore.
Defend it. Absolutely.
So they reinforced Dogra with armor and artillery and infantry.
Right.
So now it becomes a very huge objective.
Very tough.
And they want to launch a brigade attack. Desmond Hayde says, "I will do it alone.
Okay.
Provided you don't call me back.
Okay.
I want to be reinforced after I capture Dogra." And he talks to his troops and he says, "The honor of the Jats is at stake. It was a dishonor to be called back. It is our destiny to capture Dogra and nobody else should get that privilege. It is our honor. It is our destiny. We have to capture Dogra. And many of you will die.
Right.
Many of you will be wounded. And if I die, I want you to take my body to Dogra because that's where I want to be tomorrow morning." And then he says, "Where will we be tomorrow morning?" And the whole battalion roars in Dogra. Right. And they captured Dogra again.
Wow.
So what is this all about? Honor, love, self-sacrifice, discipline,
correct, sir,
commitment, and the honor of the country and the regiment is above everything else. That's what makes us do what we do.
So do you see any change in the ethos over time?
Yeah, I think so, because what is happening today is that the army, in my opinion, is being targeted by the bureaucrats.
Right, sir.
We have lost control of the cantonments,
Right, sir.
the safety and security of our families whose husbands are away. Our cantonments house the separated family quarters,
They do, sir.
and they are without any security. The cantonments are the cleanest places in India. They're the greenest places in India.
Absolutely.
And now they're trying to make us equate us with the rest, which is not very nice.
Right, sir.
Hospitals have been also opened to civilians in Ministry of Defense.
Okay.
I think, I'm not very sure about it, but I think so. You can edit this. Canteens have been opened to civilians in Ministry of Defense. So they're trying to take away all our privileges, which will affect the morale of the army.
Right, sir.
And the worst part is Agniveer or Agnipat or whatever they say.
I was coming to that, sir. In fact, what happened was I was at a very recent seminar at Kasauli where General Ashok Mehta was speaking on Nepal, and you mentioned about him in the book as your fellow company commander in 65, and in fact you say that he saved your life. And General Mehta was very vehement on the subject of how Indo-Nepal relations are being impacted by the decision of Agniveers, and how Gurkhas are now not opting for the Indian army, and instead they're opting for many other armies of the world. So I did want to ask you that how do you think the Agniveer scheme has impacted our future of soldiering and Gurkha especially?
I think it's going to affect it very, very adversely.
Right, sir.
For a number of reasons. Firstly, if a soldier is going to serve only for 4 years,
yes, sir,
he's not going to be he can't be as competent as a person who has got properly trained for 7 to 8 to 10 years.
Correct, sir.
Secondly, who have they discussed? If you are going to affect the lives of the soldier, have you discussed the matter with them?
Right.
It affects them, no?
Correct.
I don't think this has happened.
Right.
It's the officer to officer and government bureaucrats. They want to decide it on their own,
right,
without talking to the soldier. When I talked to the soldier, they said, Saab, if a person is not going to get pension, he's going to fight, going to be in the army only for 4 years.
Right, sir.
Will he stick his neck out in battle?
Correct.
Will he fight like we used to fight for the country? He won't.
It's the ultimate question.
This is what they're saying. It's not even I am saying. They are saying it.
But the impact has been particularly hard on the Gorkhas.
It's
for
been hard
historical reasons.
Yeah, not only for economic reasons. Because the country, much of its economy depends upon the pensions of Gorkha soldiers.
Right. So the entire Nepal economy depends on that cash flow that comes from India.
And it won't come anymore. So this is going to affect the Gorkha soldier, but it affects Indian soldiers also. It affects the security of India.
Right, sir.
These people have to realize. They want to save on pensions from the armed forces. But yesterday's paper say that they've increased their own, the MPs have increased their own pensions again and again.
Right, sir.
You serve 5 years and you get a full pension. You serve 10 years and you get 2 pensions. What wrong? Isn't this ridiculous?
Right, sir.
And you want to compromise the army, security of this country?
Correct, sir.
I feel the army must see reason, the armed forces must see reason and roll this back. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble.
Long-term consequences. Another aspect of soldiering that has changed, sir, and this has been seen especially in the bigger militaries across the world, is the use of mercenaries. So, for example, America fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq has Blackwater as a major partner who are providing soldiers and the infrastructure. You see the Wagner group active in Ukraine and even in Africa on Putin's behalf. The Pakistanis have used irregulars and Lashkars for a long while, even in battle in 47, 48 and in 99, and even as the grey zone warfare that keeps on happening in Kashmir. So the Indian soldier is effectively pitted against a different breed in Pakistan and China and America tomorrow when these wars happen. How do you see the Indian soldier vis-a-vis these other soldiers?
The Indian soldier is the best soldier in the world.
Right.
And the Indian officer is par excellence.
Right, sir.
The Indian officer doesn't say, "Tum aage jao, you go, I'm coming."
He leads from the front.
He says, sets a personal example, he says, "Follow me, mere piche move."
Absolutely.
And the soldier, seeing that his officer is in front, will do anything to make sure that the operation task succeeds.
Correct, sir.
This makes them the best soldiers in the world.
Right.
I'm not saying this because I'm an Indian. but because I believe this to be so.
True, sir.
When General Raina went to the USA, the chief of staff of the army chief, whoever it was, whatever it is called, asked him, he says, what makes the Indian soldier do so well? They had suffered the reverse in Vietnam.
Correct.
And he now wants to know what makes the Indian soldier motivate him to do what he does. And there was only one word answer: regimental spirit.
Right, sir.
Raina said regimental spirit. Regimental spirit will not exist in a person who stays 4 years in the army.
True.
Where's regimental spirit going to go?
True.
They want to target the army, reduce the army, reduce the terms of condition, the service, reduce their pension, but increase their own pension. This is ridiculous.
True, sir. So you don't see that kind of trend ever happening here, the mercenaries?
No, I think it will happen.
It will happen?
It will happen because these people who have served for 4 years have been trained by the army, trained to kill, trained to fight. What will happen to them after they leave the army?
They'll be recruited by others?
They'll be recruited by others. They're
Right.
going to have a parallel army against it. The violence is being bred, violence breeds violence. And these sort of decisions are going to impact the safety of India. I'm saying this because I love India. I love my country.
Understood, sir.
And therefore, I'm not being critical.
It's a note of caution.
I'm not being judgmental. I'm just stating facts.
True, sir. True.
This will happen.
True, sir. So, in one of our previous episodes, we had Lieutenant Brad here, who's an author himself, and in his forthcoming book, he's writing a pick of the army on the history of the mountain artillery, and he quoted, and I'm going to read it out, that Lieutenant General Sir James Wilcox, writing about Indian troops, said that the soldiers of Britain and the White Dominions would easily find chroniclers willing to tell their tale. Indian soldiers will furnish no writers to thrill the generations to come. They will just pass with the great masses of India, content that they have done their duty and faithful to their salt. Why are we such poor chroniclers of our military history? Why don't we have more engaging military authors like you? Why do we not preserve our memories? And most importantly, why doesn't our soldier write?
As a book lover, I think this is of concern to me also, to you also, and it should be a concern of everybody.
Yes, sir.
But people don't read these days.
Yes, sir.
And therefore, I'm trying to fill the gap by making my stories simplified for the reader to understand what the army is all about, what
Correct.
war is all about,
Right.
so that they can speak on our behalf.
Right, sir.
And I hope this happens. I hope more people will follow and write stories about the army, about their own lives.
Yes, sir.
Basically, it stems from a tradition that we don't talk about ourselves. We
Yes,
don't
sir.
talk about ourselves.
Yes, sir.
And it is this lacuna which made me write, that this needs to be broken. We must write so
Absolutely.
that people understand what the army is all about. That's why I wrote my autobiography, Cardozo, and these other stories.
Correct, sir. But we hardly have any perspectives from our ground soldiers. Not even in vernacular, there's not much material. There's nothing in English, of course. And the experiences of the officers are very well known, but the experiences of the soldiers are very less understood, what we have on the ground.
See, I have tried to fill that
You
gap.
were even mentioning poetry a little while earlier, that
Yeah.
we hardly have any war poetry, whereas the West has reams and reams of war poetry that they have
Rupert
published. Rupert Brooke and World War I, World War II, so much of poetry after that. And in
You're
fact,
very
there's
right.
a whole genre of anti-war poetry also, whereas we don't even have anti-war poetry.
You're very right. This is something which needs to be, and I think you're doing a great job
It's kind
by
of
making army stories available to the public to read. You're trying to push our
Yes,
stories, our books.
So, sir, one of the changes occurring nowadays is the overhauling of a security architecture, and the latest is the theatre commands, which is coming about. Now, the changing nature of electronic warfare and battle spaces is that today everything on the battlefield is being captured live. And you have drone surveillance, you have body cameras, you have satellites, and all the feed is going back to command centers where the senior commanders are, directing action live on the ground, what is happening. But in your book, you talk a lot about the role of the junior commanders and the fact that they must be independent in decision making because they have a better grasp on the or a handle on the situation on the ground. And even as a divisional commander, you took independent decision to cross the LOC when required. And you've appreciated generals like General Narhari and General Sagat Singh, who were bold decision-making commanders without waiting for the higher authorities of the government to take decisions for them. So, how do you see the role of our junior commanders going forward, and how do you see this change occurring, where the micromanagement of the battlefield is now being done from the top?
You're very right. This change is important. It must happen because the first thing the Dushman is going to do is to break your communication system.
Okay.
So the junior commanders must know exactly what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to do it, when they're supposed to do it, where they're supposed to do it, and do it without further orders.
Right.
Because there's going to be no communication.
Okay.
So they should be able to take independent decisions. And the Indian Army believes in risk-taking as in part of decision making.
Right.
So the risk has to be a calculated risk, but the soldier, the junior commanders, right down to NCOs, mind you,
Right. Sir.
not only junior officers.
Correct, sir.
They should all know their task, what they have to do, and go ahead and do it with resolution. No doubts in your mind.
So is this being adversely impacted today, or is it not being adversely impacted?
I'm afraid I don't know.
Okay, sir.
But it is something which needs to happen.
Right, sir.
And thanks to you and this broadcast and the stories that I'm trying to write, I will take this a note of what you're saying,
right, sir,
and try to put it in my next story.
Sure, sir. Very nice, sir. So you have this very attractive marigold on your lapel, sir.
Yeah.
What is the significance of this flower and why are you wearing it, sir?
See, there's an old colonial practice to have the poppy as the flower of remembrance for
Yes,
the country's war dead.
Yes, sir.
But we are independent for the last 75 years.
Correct,
We
sir.
fought 5 wars. Why do we have to have a colonial hang-up
Correct.
about the poppy,
Yes,
which
sir.
is not an Indian flower?
Which is not right.
But the genda,
Hanji.
the marigold, is an Indian flower.
Yes, sir.
We use it for death, we use it for life, we use it for achievements, we use it for everything. So it should also represent the Indian war dead.
Right, sir.
But nobody is listening. I've been trying to tell the army, I've been publishing this book of stories, poems. I hope it will happen at some time. Because we need to have our own flower. We don't have to have a foreign flower from a foreign
Yes, in fact, a
government.
lot of colonial vestiges are being now done away with.
But this one has not been done.
This one has not been done because they've just changed the rules for the baton for the Navy, and they've said only it's a ceremonial thing. You should not use the baton otherwise. And then there was this beating the retreat where they changed the music that was to be played, things like that. So,
See, these are things which impact upon regimental spirit.
right, sir.
We don't have a hang up about the past.
Right,
If
sir.
it is good,
Right, sir.
we need to follow it,
Right, sir.
irrespective of where it comes from.
Absolutely.
So it's something which we need to think about.
True, sir. So the military wives and the army mothers and the mothers of our soldiers and officers have a great role in having in their upbringing and how they have given them the ethos of soldiering, sir. So what's your viewpoint about that, sir?
My viewpoint is exactly what you just, I agree with what you're saying, is that if you look at the stories of the Paramveer Chakras,
yes, sir,
most of them have imbibed the values of what the stories, bedtime stories their mother and father told them about the great heroes of India.
Correct, sir.
To put country first and self last.
Self last.
So that is one. The other is that when we go into battle, we know that our army wives and army mothers are supporting us in every way, and that they have told us, don't worry about us, you do your job. So we know that the family being looked after, she's there, she's a solid support, nothing to worry about. And we also know that if anything happens to me, the wife, my family will be looked after. If I die,
yes, sir,
and if I get badly wounded, I will be taken care of. This is what motivates the soldier to do what he's supposed to do.
correct.
That must not change.
Absolutely. So at the end, we just have a set of rapid fire questions,
Okay.
which you can answer either in a single word or a single line.
Okay.
And
It's the first time I'm
absolutely.
facing this.
So why the name Cardozo Sahib?
That's what my Gurkha Johnnies found it difficult to say Cardozo Sahib.
Right.
And they have names for all the officers,
Right.
which we don't even know.
Right, sir.
But Cardozo Sahib came more easily to them, so I was called Cardozo Sahib.
Great, sir. The war cry of the Gurkhas, sir.
Ayo Gorkhali, the Gurkhas have come. Watch out.
Watch out. The thing you admire most about the Indian Army?
Honor.
Your favorite personal weapon?
In war, I used the Mark IV 303 rifle at that time.
Okay, sir.
Because the carbine had a lot of stoppages.
Right, sir.
It was lighter, and I used it in battle in 65.
Right, sir.
I killed with it, and I thought it was a good weapon.
Right. Your favorite posting while in service?
My company commander. It's the best appointment that any infantry officer can ever hope for, because not only are you close to your troops,
Yes, sir.
but you train them, you make them weapons of war. They are so close to you. You love them. You know their families. There's nothing better than a company commander's posting.
Right, sir. The best cantonment, sir?
Best cantonment. I've not stayed very much in cantonments. I think Delhi cantonment is the good
Delhi
cantonment.
cantonment. Yeah. Right, sir. The soldier you admire the most?
Desmond Head.
Right, sir. Your favorite war movie?
The one on Vikram Batra.
Okay. Your favorite military writer or book?
Little Heart.
Great, sir. Thank you, sir. It's been a very, very illuminating session, and I'm sure our viewers would love to watch and hear more about the work you have done and cherish our military and our traditions, which is what Fauji Days is all about.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we look forward to meeting you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, got a lot of nice feedback on Cardozo,
Yeah.
but I would like, and I think, even though I say so myself, I like the way it has come out.
Yes, it has. It's a remarkable book, and I found it a very engaging read.
I'd like more people to read it.
Absolutely, sir. We hope for that too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.